Joe Askren here with drjoebrews.com. This next brewery neural download was done here at Calusa Brewing in Sarasota, Florida. This is their production space on Derrick Avenue. Head brewer Mike Pulowski shares the techniques they use when harvesting yeast from a brewing beer. Well, let's go see Mike.
All right, so this is a beer that, this is our Florida flavor, which is our Florida lager. And essentially what we're doing here now is we are going to dry hop it tomorrow. We have soft crashed the beer down. Since it's a lager, we have a cooler fermentation temp. We have soft crashed it down to 50 degrees. That's allowing all that yeast that's kind of up in suspension to drop out. And then we can harvest it and do a keg off of the bottom. Then we will go into our little lab we have here, and we will count the yeast. We'll test it for its density and viability. And then from there, we will calculate exactly what we need for our next batch of Florida flavor. That way we're not buying fresh pitches of yeast every single time we want to brew this beer. Yep. We can kind of keep the generations going. I believe the furthest along we've ever been with our A18, which is our hazy IPA ale yeast, is 71 generations.
Oh my gosh.
That's 71 different beers that got the same yeast, you know, and just after so long, we just say, okay, we're gonna start fresh and just get a new one. So
that's a tremendous amount of savings, right? If you're having to buy yeast every time.
Oh yeah, you're looking at, you know, about, for a 15 barrel pitch, you're looking at about $2,000 worth of yeast there.
15 barrel, so a 15 barrel recipe, you said how many thousand?
$2,000 about for a fresh pitch. It's a little bit shy of that, but
wow,
you know, we'll round up here.
So you're saving like 2,000 times 70.
Yeah.
If you did 71 pitches, wow.
So saving quite a bit of money there.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Plus, you know, we kind of toy around with our pitching rate and everything like that, so we can kind of get the beer exactly where we like it. We definitely, our house yeast gives off lots of nice fruity esters and everything like that, which really help kind of accentuate those fruitier, more tropical hops.
For sure.
So I've had this soaking in a sandy solution. I'm going to go ahead and grab my keg, and we will start the harvesting process here.
Right on. I appreciate you showing me this, Mike. You know, I know a couple home brewers that harvest their yeast when they're brewing. You know, obviously, probably all of your craft breweries will harvest yeast, right?
Yes, I would say the majority of craft breweries will harvest their yeast and use it for repitching. You know, I don't think all of them will do a full-on count. Some may just have other calculations and things that work for them, but we're a fairly technical brewery, so we like to kind of have things in exact amounts and all that. So that's kind of how we do it here, but everyone pretty much harvests yeast because it's just kind of you're gonna save a lot more money, you know.
That little thing you did there, where you were just kind of releasing some of the pressure from the keg?
Just releasing some of the pressure, purging out any of that sanitizer that might still be in the line here, you know. Heaven forbid we forget to depressurize the keg, send, you know, any kind of pressure back in. I want to make sure there's no oxygen in there. Oxygen is the biggest catalyst for beer, or biggest issue for beer. Oxidized beer is pretty much the worst thing that we can have happen.
So Mike, so what's going on here, people that are watching this video, so we have a beer in this fermenter and Florida flavor, and so what's happened, you sort of soft crash it, you said, the yeast will sink to the bottom of this conical base here?
Yes, and that's exactly why we have it in a conical, that's why these fermenters have the conical bases. It makes it easier for all those solids, hops or yeast kind of drop out. So that way when we transfer the beer, we're pulling from a racking arm, which this kind of indicates which way direction it's facing. We know that we're pulling just straight, good beer.
Right.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay. That's
Did
okay.
not mean to spray you there. We're going to depressurize the keg.
So if you didn't cold crash it, you know, you would have yeast coming up way above the racking arm there. But now that you're going to harvest it, yeah. Or I guess when I homebrew, I'll just do a yeast dump if I'm not harvesting.
Yeah.
You're actually being smart about it. You're saving the yeast to use for later. Okay.
Exactly. And one thing we'll do is, you know, when we transfer these beers, you know, we cold crash just because when we transfer them, you know, a lot of this would be up in solution still, and we package cold. You know, that's how the beer absorbs the CO2 at a colder temperature, and we always package cold and all that. So if we cold crash it, we send it over hot, and then we cold crash it in the bright, we would see a lot of that stuff anyways drop out into the bright tank. A lot of that would make it into the cans and kegs, which ultimately is just going to kind of lower the quality of our product and not taste as much, you know, taste the way we want it to. So right now I'm just kind of dialing in my flow. I don't know if you can see here, but we like to go nice and slow. That way we don't channel anything in bulk beer. You know, typically off of a lot of these beers, we'll get anywhere between 25 to 30 gallons of yeast.
Wow.
Most beers averaging about 10 to 12 gallons per pitch. So, you know, we'll get a couple beers worth of yeast off of every single beer that we harvest off of. So when you're kind of busy working out the distribution and all the stuff for the tap room, you know, having too much yeast is never an issue.
So that's like a 15-gallon keg there, right? So
yeah, a 15-gallon keg. We'll harvest until we get to beer. That way we know any yeast that's dropped to the bottom is pulled off. Another thing that's happening is any of the yeast that's dead is getting pulled off the beer. That way it's not imparting any of its flavor onto it. You know, dead yeast kind of smells like waste a little bit. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it's not a pleasant smell. So it's kind of an umami thing, and it's definitely good to just get all of it off of there. So
you're looking until that's kind of run clear?
Yes, I will run this until I see beer.
Okay.
Then we will try again tomorrow. Before we do the dry hop, we always make sure that there's no more yeast settled out. So we will harvest again.
Oh, okay, the same fermenter here.
Yes, and then once we're at beer, we will set a loop. We'll pull from the racking arm down to the bottom, create a recirculation, and then we'll just go right up on top and throw in the hops there.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, and really quick, I'm going to switch over. Oh, already did it for me. All right, so yeah, in this process, typically we see it takes anywhere between 25 minutes to 45 minutes. You know, just lager yeast tends to be a lot thicker. So the slower we go, the better. You know, it can channel pretty quickly, we've noticed. With a lot of our A18 ale yeast, like we're able to go, it moves a little faster, so we're able to kind of pull all three brinks off at a much better time. But, you know, we don't rush through anything here. We don't cut corners. We just kind of, whatever the time takes, it takes. So
you're saying this should take how many minutes?
You know, at the fastest, it would be 25, 30 minutes probably. At its slowest, we're probably looking at about 45 minutes.
Gotcha.
But essentially what I'll do is once we're at fully open on our coupler, I'll just start slowly gassing off the keg, allowing the flow. It's a really good way to control the flow. That way I have it exactly where I want it. Our tank is pressurized. We always make sure that we don't lose any pressure. And yeah, we're just kind of a normal cellar task, pretty much done 2 to 3 times a week at least, depending on how many beers we have in fermenters. So
this Florida flavor that's in this fermenter here, it's under pressure?
Yes. Okay. So when we crash any beer, anytime we drop the temperature like that, to avoid any sort of vacuum or anything like that, we'll just put it under about 5 pounds of pressure. Gotcha. We don't want to go too high, because the more pressure we put on the tank, the more it kills off our yeast a little bit, stresses the yeast out. We want it to be as healthy as possible. You know, ideally our viabilities are always 85% or higher. You know, with lager yeast, we notice after a couple repitches, we start to drop down to the 70s or maybe even lower, and typically that's when we'll buy a new fresh pitch. But with our ale yeast, we typically are always at 88% or higher, you know, and that's kind of our standard
viability.
Yeah. So, and we'll definitely notice that the density on these lager yeasts are insane. You know, we're always way over the top with these. We almost have to dilute them twice before we count them, just because they're so thick, you know. Right. So, but yeah, this is just, you got this rolling. Usually, you know, a big thing about brewing is it's a lot of multitasking. So that's kind of the hardest part for a lot of people to adapt to when they get in the industry, is you're gonna have 3 or 4 tasks rolling at once. You don't want to start doing that until you kind of are efficient in everything you're doing. So I know I've got my flow at a place where I like it. It's nice and slow. Now I can peel off, and as I'm moving around in the cellar, I will come back and continue to check on it. But yeah, we're gonna hop back over here. And as we're walking by, this is where I can see my flow is slowed down a little bit. We'll just open up this a little bit more. You can see it's barely flowing there, but we're gonna start picking up here again soon. So this is kind of what I was talking about with the whole multitasking. You can just barely hear it, but it's starting to vent off there, so that will continue to flow.
So, okay, gotcha. So that's so you don't have any pushback.
Exactly.
Once that keg fills up, will it just stop?
So what will happen is it'll get to the point where I'm venting off from the back side of the keg just to continue the flow, and we'll just start to have yeast. We'll start foaming out of the top. So then we will go ahead and pull it, pull a sample. We'll shake the keg up really well. We'll grab a sanitized glass. We'll fill it up. We'll weigh the keg and get a gallon amount off of it, and then it'll be thrown in our fridge in there for us to count. We typically count the same day, or if not the next morning. So,
hey, so I got this guy, man, Mike, phenomenal brewer. You're doing some awesome things here at Calusa Brewing, award-winning brewery. I just got to hang out with this guy for like almost an hour. He was giving me all these great techniques and tips. I hope you enjoyed them, and can't wait to get back here later whenever you let me in again.
Oh, absolutely, anytime, anytime.
Thanks,
I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
For anybody who sees this video, if you see me in the tap room, you're coming down to check it out. Feel free to come up and ask questions. I love to talk about beer.
Awesome.
So,
and you got your gold medal winning Zote being made here in the back.
We do. Right now we've got a 15 barrel batch of the gold medal winning Zote. We do 30 barrel batches for distro. We do 15 barrel batches for the tap room. So just got that rolling now. Looks like Zeke is done lautering and he's boiling. So he's got about 3 hours left in his day or so, and he's going to be done and out of here. So
that's it, man. Give him a go Bulls.
Go Bulls.
Go Bulls. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Mike. Thanks
no
again,
problem.
buddy.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.